Hello, everyone. Hello, Sheikh Yasser. How are you? Can you confirm that you can hear me, please? No, I guess not. Can everybody hear me? Can somebody put me, chat me, letting me know that the sound is working just to make sure we are good?
It's working, yes, yes.
Okay, great.
I'm listening you.
Hello, Samia.
Yes, mashallah, beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, we can't see your faces because we enable the participants. Everyone's video is not there, so I can't see you, but I'm sure you are also very beautiful. Thank you, Samia. I appreciate the compliment. Just give us 1 second. We are getting something situated. I hope everybody is doing well. Go ahead and chat me. Let me know how things are going. You know, we are always open to feedback, any questions you might have or things you're wondering for upcoming webinars. We always want to give a chance to our viewers to, you know, let us know what's on your mind. Hello, there you are, Sheikh. Hello, Sheikh. How are you?
Hey, Sarah, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking.
Anybody responding to you, letting you know how well they're doing?
Not yet, actually. I'm sure they will let us know in a minute or two.
Nice.
Assalamu alaikum to my entire Access family. I hope you are all doing well and enjoying your summer so far. I know I speak on behalf of the entire team here at the agency when I say we appreciate you. We appreciate your support and your participation at our webinars. For our newcomers, welcome. I'm Sada Bajawi. I'm one of the mental health clinicians here in the mental health department. At Access California Services, we are an agency located in Anaheim, and we are open Mondays through Fridays from 8 to 5. We offer mental health services as well as assistance in different government-based programs such as health insurance and CalFresh benefits. Today, I am joined by our dear Sheikh Yasser, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we are here to discuss relationship management. So before we get started, I do want to remind you all of making use of the chat box. Feel free to send in your questions, your comments, and as you know, we're always open to feedback. So should you have any topic selection that you'd like us to talk about, let us know what you want to hear. So why don't you guys go ahead and get started in the chat? We'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think makes a relationship successful? Sheikh Yasser, we can start with you. Of course, please share your thoughts while the viewers post what they think makes a relationship successful.
Well, Sarah, to all of our viewers, assalamu alaikum, and hope everybody's having a good day. I am very sure you know that tomorrow is the day of Arafat, and the day after is going to be the day of Eid. So Eid Mubarak to you, to Access family, and to all the people who are out there who are going to be celebrating the day of Eid. And as you know, this is going to be our second Eid where we are not going to be a family. And as you know, to many faith groups, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, and Muslims, many times their faith community is actually their second community or their second family as well. So we always look forward to enjoying our Eid and our festivals with our brothers and sisters in humanity, as well as our brothers and sisters in faith. But it is not going to be happening this year for the second time. So I'm very sure a good number of people are saddened by this, but please, priority is safety at this point. So please do remain to be safe and practice, social distance to the best of your ability, inshallah.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for that information, Sheikh. كل سنة وانت سالم إن شاء الله.
Allah يسلمك. Oh, the Arabic is back, mashallah, tabarakallah.
Yeah, and Shireen already has participated in the chat. Thank you so much, Shireen, for giving us your thoughts. She says effective communication and respecting each other.
Actually, that's a really, really nice place to start. And subhanAllah, Sarah, here's the interesting part. Whenever we speak about relationships, it's like I'm not sure what comes to mind when people speak about relationships, but depending on where the person is coming from, usually people say that there are three relationships that we need to be mindful of. For those, the faith community, their relationship with God is really important. And then the next of importance is our relationship with ourselves, because our relationship with ourselves is going to actually dictate the relationship that we have with the rest of the world. The rest of the world means the environment and also the people around us. However, I think for the sake of this segment, I believe that we're talking about human relationships, and I think we are talking about mostly familial relationships. Interestingly, there was a study that was done in predicting, I don't know if you've heard about the study, but it was a study done predicting happiness and well-being. And supposedly it was one of the longest studies that were held, studying about over 340 people, mostly men, initiated by Harvard University. And they wanted to see like what were the factors. And by the end of the day, the factors that would determine your health and happiness. And it turned out that it was not money, it was not career, it was not what you did, but what all these people had in mind was meaningful relationships. Meaningful relationships was such a big, huge factor in how much we enjoy life. And also it was directly impacting our own physical health, and of course, our own mental and social health as well. So please do not undermine the idea of, discussing, discussing, the importance of relationships or what makes relationships important. I think it really, really is an important topic, and I'm really, really happy that we are discussing this.
Yes, for sure. And thank you for bringing that up. I think that a lot of times when people hear relationships, they're automatically assuming a husband and a wife, which definitely that is the case for the most part. We're talking about marriage. And then we also have friendships, another type of relationships, and also relationships at work. So I do want our viewers to kind of think much more broadly when they think about relationships and what makes them successful. But I think, as Shireen has already pointed out, effective communication is key across any type of relationship that you have. When both people in a relationship are comfortable expressing their expectations, it builds trust and it builds connection. So communication is definitely the number one thing, I think, when you're looking to have
100% agree. And I'm going to give you my list of what makes a relationship a happy relationship. And I want to make them as universal as possible. So it could be a marital relationship, a familial relationship, or even just friend, relationships amongst friends or even co-workers. I think these are like the most important components of a healthy relationship. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Can we get drum rolls?
You're ready.
All right. So here is what I think they are, and we're just going to take a few minutes discussing each one of them. I believe happy relationships are marked by openness, honesty, respect, reasonable expectations, concern for mutual well-being, and allowing for a room of expressing individuality. I really think that these 6 components are extremely vital. First one, I believe, is this idea of openness. And I think, you and Shireen said that, the whole notion of communication. And when we say openness, we're talking about a relationship that's good is actually a safe relationship where people feel free to bring to the open their needs, their desires, their concerns, their fears, their expectations. But I think you are unable to do any of this unless you feel safe, and that safety is translated in terms of openness. And I think that's just one big, huge thing. And I can tell you, Sarah, and I'm very sure you relate to this, as a clinician who's constantly seeing people, I see a lot of people telling me as individuals that which they are unable to express with their families, be it with the husband or with the wife or with the parents or the siblings or what have you. And I'm just always baffled by, certain things we don't want to share. But what you're sharing with me is so fundamental to the well-being of the relationship. And I'm just wondering, like, why are you not saying this? Why are you not talking about this? Why don't you bring this to the open? And usually it boils down into people not feeling safe. So safety is there, but safety is going to be assumed once we say that there is openness in the relationship. And I tell you, openness does not necessarily mean rudeness. Openness does not necessarily mean being offensive or easily offended. But openness is that sense of comfort and safety where people feel that, look, I can speak and I can say, be courteous, be polite, and be respectful, and all these things. So that is my number one factor as far as what I think makes good, meaningful, happy relationships.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah, I've definitely heard many times, maybe from a client or just any person I'm having a discussion with, where they'll tell me, I'm having trouble with this in my relationship. And the first thing I said would be, did you bring it up? Did you ask your spouse anything about it? And be like, no, I haven't really brought it up. It's maybe not that serious, or I'm trying to pick my battles wisely. Well, if it is something that's important to you or it matters to you, then you ought to definitely voice your opinion. Otherwise, you're going to assume the person's a psychic and they can read your mind. And we know that's definitely not the case. So I think, just like you said, Sheikh, being open, being communicative are definitely two vital things that make a relationship successful.
And I think we mentioned this before. I say what happens in my mind and what's going on in my heart are places where people must either receive an invitation, or when they knock on the door, they have to be admitted in. Because I really I can neither read your mind, nor can I see what is going on in your heart unless I am told. And again, just to make this a little bit more controversial, and see if I can offend people, because I just enjoy doing that. Part of the Middle Eastern culture, remember what we said about Middle Eastern culture, not Middle Eastern culture, generally speaking, Eastern cultures are not direct communication cultures. They really are about, indirect communication. So most of the time in Eastern cultures, what people say, they don't mean. And what they really mean, they don't say. So what happens is you are left so for example, some people are just going to chat right now and say, oh my God, that was such a great webinar. That was such a great, and like in their house, oh my God, that was a total waste of time. And then, I'm saying,
That's
okay,
the example you want to use right now.
I know, but here's the thing. If you come to me and you constantly say, oh, that was so good, that was really great, well, guess what? Next time, you're getting more of what I've been giving you. And so you really never told me what was really going on. And what you said to me, you really did not mean. And what you really meant was never communicated to me. So I'm just going to go. Now, imagine this goes on in life, in marriages, at work, and what have you. And I think that is where the problem comes from. And I think all of this can be addressed adequately if we agree that openness is really, really important.
Yes. Oh my God. Excellent. You bring up such an important point. I think many, many times we assume the other person should know, and that's why we don't mention it. I mean, there have been many times where families get into different dilemmas and they're expecting the other person in the family to take care of the situation, but the person all along thinks there's nothing wrong to begin with. So it creates this problem within the household, an unspoken problem, and that in turn creates tension. And so it becomes like a vicious cycle where the problems start to develop into bigger problems. So definitely being open, being communicative. Also, another thing that I do want to point out that I feel is important in a relationship, and maybe that's just me and my own love language, as they say, being acknowledged. I think it's super important that we recognize our partners, the people that we work with, our community, even our family, if you really think about it, just looking at like a school calendar, for example, we have Teacher Appreciation Week, Administrative Week, School Counselor Week. It's important to let the person know that their efforts are being appreciative and they're known. So I definitely think that another thing that makes a relationship successful is acknowledgement, is letting the person who you care for know that you care for them. Maybe that ties into being communicative too, because you're not telling them, just letting them know that they are important.
Yeah.
That's something I feel is important. What do you think, Sheikh?
Well, I think there are two things here. I think there are the factors to maintain a relationship and factors to enhance a relationship. And I think that what you said absolutely enhances that relationship, okay? Because, and I think what is meant by appreciation is that I see you and I see the good that you bring to the relationship and the good that you do, and I am not afraid of pointing this out. And I think, and again, you know, speaking from experience here as a clinician, whenever I have people coming in, you know, the idea of just not feeling appreciated is unbelievable. When you do not feel unappreciated, dismissed, that leads to resentment. And you know, in marriages, most of us, unfortunately, we keep a scoreboard. And the score is usually 10-0 in our favor. And we're constantly waiting for the other person to make up, acknowledge, appreciate, and that never happens. But, and here is the sad part, we are very quick to criticize each other and to point out the faults, but we are not as good when it comes to appreciating and acknowledging the good. I love what is going on nowadays. You know this as when you worked at the school, the I got you card. So this started being implemented by some elementary schools. And they're saying that, look, we have a tendency to catch people doing something wrong. You know, I caught them red-handed. I caught them with their pants down. I caught them with their hand in the cookie jar. So they said the teachers would walk around the school and their job was to catch kids doing the right thing, throwing stuff in the trash. So as soon as a teacher sees a child doing this, they go to them and they say, I got you doing the right thing. And they hand them a card. And at the end of the week or at the end of the month, they count all the kids who have been given these cards, and the kid with the most card, they get to have lunch with the principal. And that was their reward. And I love the idea of just constantly getting and catching people doing the right thing. Why is that important? Because any behavior that gets appreciated definitely gets repeated. If we want good behavior to be repeated, we have to acknowledge and we have to appreciate that behavior.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Of course, I remember that. We used to have these compliment cards. We'd have to write for a student. Oh, we just saw that student pick up something and put it in the trash can. Let's remember to put him on blast when we do our assembly or something. And that's definitely a great positive reinforcement technique. I think even if it comes to parenting, just letting the child know that you acknowledge that they cleaned up their room or they made their bed or they put away their dish. And something as small as that, it lets them know that they are being recognized. And then it also continues that positive behavior, which of course, you know, is a win-win situation at that point.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. The other thing that I also feel is really, really important is this idea of reasonable expectation. Okay. Now, we in all relationships, we come in with expectations, and sometimes our expectations are so ideal that we literally set ourselves up for disappointment and we set the other person for failure. And I think that having reasonable expectations is so unbelievably key to this. And I usually like to give the example using children. I said, look, as children are maturing, you know, I give this example of, you know, when kids are learning how to master their fine skill motors, you know, pouring from a jar into a cup. What is the right age that a kid can do this without creating a mess? What is the right age? You know, it depends on how full the jar is, how big the cup is, and what have you.
How tall the
But-
child is.
Exactly. So, you know what, at 5, what are my expectations? versus at 8, what are my expectations? And at 12, what are my expectations? So having reasonable expectations, I think, is really, really key. So I want my kid to learn, but I can't really expect them to do it so perfectly at 5. And if I do, I will disappoint them and I'll disappoint myself, and I'm setting them up for failure because my expectations have actually not been reasonable. And to bring this more into that, marital relationship, honestly speaking, sometimes people get married and they think that, what, my expectation of my spouse is that they will make me happy. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. I think it's a terrible expectation. Okay. Now, I expect that, what, my loneliness will be taken away. I think that there are certain things that are really a personal responsibility. Our spouses are not supposed to bring them and build their foundation, but we get married to the people that we do so that they enhance the good that we already have. Okay. So I would say that I'm able to, to be happy, but being with this person will make me happier. I have enough self-respect, but with this person, my self-respect will be enhanced. I have self-appreciation, but being with this person, it will enhance my sense of self-appreciation. But if I don't have any of it, and I expect that person to do it for me, I find that to be very, very problematic. And before you all jump on me and get mad, hear me out. I do premarital counseling. And I ask you, say, why do you want to get married? Say, because I just feel lonely and I don't like being lonely. And I usually say, look, if you cannot stand your own company, what makes you think that somebody else is going to enjoy your company? Are you following what I'm saying? So now what happens is that I say, look, there's got to be reasonable expectations where I can really deliver, and it would be right on your part to actually expect these expectations.
Look at that. So that actually brings me into my second question. How do we keep relations healthy? And so what you're saying is keep your expectations realistic, right?
Sure.
And I totally agree. I totally agree. If I'm putting my child in preschool, can I expect him to know how to spell his name the very next day? Well, I guess it depends, but not really. If he's just starting school and just starting to read, obviously that takes development and training. So you're absolutely right when it comes to keeping them realistic. But this whole, I expect them to make me happy, is that not an expectation?
No, I expect them to be happier. I want to be happier with them because I am able to self-entertain. I am able to meet my basic emotional needs on my own. You cannot come. See, and here's what I believe. I think that, when we come into a relationship with a lot of needs, we create a burden on that relationship. But the more we take care of our own needs, the less dependent we become on that relationship, which means that there's going to be less pressure on that relationship. So what happens is I say, look, let's see how much of it can I do this on my own, so that when we come into this relationship, we are actually better. We do not become a liability, but rather we become an asset. And I'm not talking about exceptions. I'm talking about just generally speaking, I think that ought to be the attitude by which we approach healthy relationships.
Yes, absolutely. Keeping your life balanced. Absolutely. Self-care, remembering that it's okay to be selfish and take care of yourself. And that involves good sleep, good nutrition, good exercise. When you feel good, you give your best self to other people, right? So absolutely, I think that keeping a balanced, nutritious type of lifestyle, it not only takes care of you and your needs, but ultimately then it lessens the amount of needs that you have as a person, which then gives the couple more of a chance to help each other, build each other up. Yes. Absolutely. And
Okay.
also, I think last week we brought up the whole don't sweat the small stuff. Remember that, Sheikh?
Yes.
Being flexible.
Yes.
Obviously, looking at different relationships, whether they're marriages or friendships or even at work, there's going to be a lot of mistakes that take place or a lot of adversities, if you will. And the way that you handle them is important. Does that mean that every single little thing that takes place, you are going to make a fiasco out of it? No, there are going to be some things that happen that you have to let go, because when you look at it from a bigger picture, you realize that really doesn't matter. So being flexible, knowing your expectations, setting them at a realistic level, and definitely keeping a balanced life for yourself so that it then turns the relationship into a greater one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Another one I think also is really important is this idea of concern for the mutual well-being of each other. And let me see if I can say this differently. So sometimes when we look into certain relationships, you see that the relationships are what we call, they are unbalanced, where there is one party in the relationship, they happen to be doing most of the work. And I'm not talking about physical work. They just carry a lot more weight in making the relationship, in making sure that this relationship is working out. At a certain point, as parents, we do this because our kids are still young. But as they grow older, we want to see them, take care of some of that responsibility on their own as well. But you do not want this to be the case in your relationship. Meaning that we want a relationship where it is balanced, where there is actually mutual concern for the happiness and the well-being of each other. Let me say this differently. So nowadays, and I say this a lot to young people, who are in, getting into relationships, and I say, look, there is, how do I say this without driving people crazy now? So I like to make a distinction between a connection and a relationship. A connection is a temporary agreement where people agree to misuse and abuse each other's body. It is mainly promoted and encouraged by things. Versus a relationship is a long-term agreement where people really care for each other's well-being, growth, and happiness. In order for that relationship to be healthy and to be maintained, people must feel that there is this mutual concern for each other's well-being, each other's growth, each other's happiness. And I believe that the more we convey this in the relationships that we are in, I think people just, the more we feel that we are being fulfilled in this relationship, the longer we would want to stick around. Interestingly, I don't know if you've seen this. Why do people work where they work? Like, why do people choose to work where they are? Most people say that, people are motivated by money. It turned out that when they discussed, surveyed a group of people, it turned out that this was not the case. It was actually the number one reason why people choose to work where they are working is, number one was, I feel appreciated in that place. I can be making more money somewhere else, but I feel appreciated in this place. Number two, they said, was, I really like the environment. And that's what I'm saying right now, the environment. What is it about the environment? You know what? They care about my well-being. They care about my growth. They invest in us being happy. The company does not mind paying for this or paying for that, because we want people to be happy. So the environment. Number three was actually money. And that's why people say, you're working so far from there. Yeah, but I really like where I work. You know what? I live here, but I work there, but I really like where I work, and I would not give it up, knowing that I can be closer to home, but I still go there because I like the environment, because I feel appreciated there. So I really think that when people know that we are genuinely concerned about their well-being, about their happiness, about their growth, and that is communicated to them, I think the likelihood of us wanting to stick in that place, I think, is just absolutely enormous. We can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
It was like you're waiting for something to make fun of. I
No,
saw it coming.
I was not waiting. I know it's just coming. It's just a matter of I know it's a matter of when.
I'm gonna bring the laptop a lot closer because it's not on mute or anything, but sometimes the mic goes in and out. I don't know, maybe because we're both co-hosting. Somehow we're confusing Zoom here. Where were we? Prioritizing your needs. So if your needs are to be appreciated, to be a part of a welcoming community, and to do something that you love, and you're at this job that happens to be far and doesn't pay you as much that probably you can get somewhere else. And so now you're obviously prioritizing your needs, because even though you would prefer to make more money and have a shorter commute, the pros outweigh the cons in that situation. And so you're going to end up making that decision based off of the needs that need to be fulfilled that are more important to you. However, when we talk about, for example, appropriate limits within a relationship, because I know that's the third question on the flyer that we prompted for our audience to think about. What are appropriate limits within a relationship? When I was doing some reading on it, believe it or not, setting finances is an important thing in a relationship, letting it be known as a boundary, discussing it, arranging it, knowing where money stands within a relationship. Because unfortunately, when we look at marriages and marriages only, it turns out 50% of divorces actually happen because of finances. What do you think, Shia? What are your thoughts on that?
Interestingly, I was reading this yesterday, the 11 causes of divorce. Number one was money, believe it or not.
I believe it. Unfortunately, I feel like that's
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Do I sound like the commercial?
Yeah, you do.
No, I do believe it, is what I was saying. I absolutely believe it. I definitely see that as a big problem amongst marriages, especially now with both spouses working and making their own money. It does create bigger problem. I would like to think it's probably a bigger problem when one is dependent on the person for their money, but it does seem to be a big issue within marriages.
Yeah, interesting. By the way, like we said, we want to make this as universal. I know you specified this for marriage, just making it as universal as possible. I think you and I think I forgot, was it Shireen that initially pointed this out? Sometimes when you look into what makes a happy marriage, also please consider the opposite of it. For example, so when we do our premarital counseling and we look into what are the causes of problems in a relationship, there is one quadrant there that I like to call a love buster. And love busters are things that if people continue to do, it makes it very difficult to continue to love you or to want to be with you. And within that love buster, there are three things. Constant criticism is one of them. And that constant criticism usually leads to constant defensive-ness, where everything is perceived as an attack, no matter how innocent it was said. And the last one is respect, I think, which you mentioned, the idea of disrespect. If I do not believe that I am respected as an individual in this relationship, is that I would not want to be there. And by the way, we're not just talking about marital relationships. We're talking about even in a parental relationship, when people are treated with respect, number one, that respect usually gets reciprocated. Their sense of self, their sense of being is valued in the ways that we talk to them, in the ways that we address them and what have you. And you've got to love this in the Arab culture, in the Middle Eastern culture, the idea of, you know what, you show the amount of respect, the amount of respect to your relatives, to your elders, to your teachers, and so on. That is such a really, really nice, these are nice values that we want imbibed in our relationships. I really want to be in a relationship. Not only do I feel appreciated, but I also want to feel respected and not violated. And I think that is really, really crucial.
Absolutely. And again, another thing that you
get closer.
Yes. Although I feel like what I see right now is this, all you can see is half of my face. Sorry about that. I don't want to be like in everyone's personal space here. Appropriate limits in a relationship, absolutely. like you mentioned, goal setting is another one besides it being finances, but a mutual goal. If you know, for example, I, as one individual in this relationship, have aspirations to become whatever it is I want to become, I do expect the partner to support me in that endeavor, right? So remember, guys, if you are there for each other to help each other achieve what you each want in your life, that's another important element in building a successful relationship and keeping it. And that's not also to marital, that's also to friendship or also at work. There is an expectation that there's some sort of community and loyalty amongst friends, amongst coworkers, and amongst marriages as well as families. So being there to support each other in your individual goals is obviously in support of that one person, to be able to build that one person's self-esteem, but in turn, that energy actually rubs off on the ability to stick together as a team. Absolutely.
Good one. That's a really good one. I was just looking for a stack of cards that I had. I wanted to share this with our viewers. So one thing that actually keeps a relationship going is for people to continuously want, desire, and plan to know each other. Okay. So for example, Sarah, you in your teens are very different than when you were in your 20s, very different than when you were in your 30s, and now you're very different now that you are in your 40s, right?
You're near there, but okay. I know you heard me there. Did you?
Yeah. So
Nowhere near there is what I said. But okay, go ahead and fill us in. What happens in the next phase of our lives?
So what happens is who I am today, hopefully is very different than who I was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and so on. So what happens sometimes in a relationship, we think we know the person. We know them when they were in their late teens or early 20s, and that's it. And we forget to discover each other as we grow, because we are both going to grow. Remember, growth is not the problem. Growing in different directions, that is going to be a problem. And what we want to do is that we continuously want to continue to know each other. So there is an activity that I do with my clients. Maybe Sarah, we can do it with you right now. I challenge my clients and I say, let's say it was a husband and a wife, they've been married for 10 years. And I say, how well do you know your husband, your wife, on a scale of 0 to 10? And most people know them like 8, 9. I know him or her like the back of my hand. I know him so well, I can finish the sentence before they. I say, okay, fine. I will ask you a question about your wife or your husband, whom you claim to know very well, and you tell me what the answer is. Are you ready?
How is this going to work if you're using me as an example? How will you judge that I know the answer right?
We would take your word for it.
Oh, okay. So I guess there's no right or wrong.
No.
Okay,
you don't
go
have
ahead.
you don't have to give me the answer, but I want you to tell me if you know the answer to this question or not.
Okay, fair.
Okay? If I were to ask you in the presence of your husband, and I would say, Sarah, what is your husband's biggest personal unaccomplished aspiration? Would you know the answer to that question?
Man, what a challenge. The
Okay.
biggest
Unaccomplished
unaccomplished.
personal aspiration.
Okay.
And here is usually how people start. They say, I think, and I say, wrong. I would say, that is wrong. And the minute you say, I think, that is wrong, that is your own rational deduction. Now, you could be right. But the question is, if you claim to know a person at an 8 or a 9, this must be like an easy answer. Like, of course I know. I know what their biggest unaccomplished personal aspiration is. Let me tell you about it, because we speak about it all the time. Because when people know each other, they know of each other's dreams. Now, let's say I ask you this question. So your husband, in his mind, what is he doing? He is thinking, I am going to ask him the same question. So I say, and how well do you think you know your wife? He says, I know her very well. Now he's already like thinking about what your biggest unaccomplished personal aspiration is. And I say, okay, my question to you is, what is your wife's biggest fear? And usually the person sits there because they were not expecting that question, say, I think, and that's where you say, you are actually wrong. So here's the thing. I actually have a stack, 300 questions, 300 questions, and these are questions that, let's see how well do you know your spouse. And they are all of this caliber. Now, can you imagine, like, this is like how deep these conversations can get. Please tell me that you want these cards. Would you like to have these questions?
Already on my to-do list, email Sheikh Yasser asking for those cards. I'm pretty sure all of our participants, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I said I'm pretty sure all of our participants are gonna go home now and ask their husbands these questions or ask their wives these questions. Let me ask you, what do you think my worst fear is?
Yeah. So
in case stirred up.
Yeah. So in case you want these cards, the answer is no, to you and to the viewers as well.
Oh, what's that? You're like teasing us with all these fun trivia questions.
I'm telling you. And imagine you do this with your children. Now imagine you do this with your parents. Imagine you do this with your friends whom you have been a friend of for the longest time. And they don't have to be that deep, but they would have to be deep enough, because see, the way that we gauge how good a relationship is not just by length, it's also by depth. And I think that is really, really crucial. And sometimes we miss out on this. The focus is really on the length and not on the depth. And I think at that point, a price is being paid, because we are looking at the wrong, measurement. Length, I think, is important, but never at the expense of depth. Okay. Or
I really appreciate that. I love that. It's not about the length, it's about the depth. So it doesn't really matter how long you've spent with this person. It's how much you guys have gotten together and had these intense conversations, learning about one another, understanding each other, and expressing your needs and your goals. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Sarah. I think that was quotable.
Wow. Wait, my part or your part?
Please.
Thank you. Well, honestly, Sheikh, that was actually very insightful. I will admit it, and I will acknowledge you.
Thank you.
Any last minute thoughts about relationship success, relationship management?
And this idea of, so I really give credit where credit is due. I think it was attributed to Ibn Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun, the famous sociologist, who said that, they say that part of his prayers is that he would say, Allahumma inni as'aluka umran aridan. In Arabic, usually say, oh, Allah, I ask you for umr tawil, Allah tawil umrak. You know what? And that is like a lengthy one. And Ibn Khaldun did not ask for one that is lengthy, but he asked for one that was vast. Okay. And I thought that was just absolutely crazy that he would make this type of prayer, because again, it just boils down into this idea of, is it really the length, or is it really the depth? And what we're hoping for is that people actually do not to stop getting to know each other. And getting to know each other, our kids are growing. We want to continue to see how they're growing. Our relationship is growing. We are growing. How is it that we are growing? Because I do not want to miss out on learning about my kids, for example, or about my spouse. One thing that I usually hear in counseling sometimes is, my dad still thinks I am 12. My mom still treats me like I am still, 14. And these are people who are now, in their, late 20s, early 30s. They believe that the parents have really not made that connection, that their kids have really grown up. Of course, we will always be kids for our parents, but I think the point here is that we do not want to miss out on learning about how the other people are growing.
Absolutely. Keep learning about each other. Be flexible with one another. Remember, don't sweat the small stuff. Communicate with one another. Most importantly, being open to one another, accepting each other for your goods, your bads, your flaws, your specialties, and respect each other, because ultimately that's really the only need that you have. You are independent, you are worth it, you are important, and you have everything that you need. So when you're going into a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a marriage, all you need at that point is respect and companionship. So thank you so much for your insightful advice, Sheikh. I really did appreciate all your practical tips. And that quiz you gave me, I really need those cards. Just
I'm
putting it
telling
out
you.
there.
I'm telling you.
Putting it
And
out there,
here's
I need
what,
them.
here is something that I would love for our participants to do, and that is, what kind of questions would you like to ask of your spouse, of your kids, or of your parents about you? Like, what has been something that, you know, your spouse has not spoken to you about? You know, my husband didn't ask me about this. My wife, I wish she would ask me a question about this. I bet you my husband, my wife, my kids, my parents do not know this about me. And I remember, oh my God, this is going to require a confession on my part, but nevertheless, you got all excited now.
I was like, let me put my recorder on.
I know you did. So I remember when we were in counseling classes, because we were a cohort and we're going to be with each other for 3 years. So the teacher would ask questions, say like, find out who speaks most language in this class. So, you know, you go out and you're finding out things that you wouldn't know about a person. So you hear my accent and you definitely know that I speak a language other than English, but how many? Okay. Or, you know, they say, find out who has visited most places in this class, find out, and so on. And I remember one of the questions was, find out who has gotten most tickets in this class, like traffic tickets. And guess who was number one?
That's not going to be hard at all.
It was actually.
And the trophy goes to.
It actually did go to me. The trophy actually went to me. But here was the thing, which was really, really interesting, because I really am a very calm person. I really am. And what happened is they asked, how many tickets have you had? And the answer was, I had 13.
Repeat that. Sorry, I might have heard. You said 30 or 13 or
13. I said I had 13 tickets, which is a lot. That is a lot of tickets. And what I meant is, there are certain things that had you not asked this question, there was no way that you would know, that you would never, you would have never found this about a person. Okay. And now remember, so that may really not be a big deal. You know, it's like a vital piece of information about this.
No, Chef. We work together. If we're ever going to go in the car together, I'm going to make sure you're not the one driving. This is very important. Thank you for letting us know.
So now what happens is, it's this idea of, you know what, asking good questions of each other, where we're just really continuously finding out about what is going on. You know what? I mean, just I think the possibilities are abundant. Anyways, so what I am hoping and challenging you and our viewers out there is, if you were to make a list, I'm just asking for 3 questions. You know what? We would love to have our own list. Like, what would that look like? What are some of the questions that you would love your spouse to ask you, or your children, or your friends to ask you? What would that look like? Anything comes to mind?
So many.
We
Can
can't
you hear
hear you. We can hear you now.
Anything comes to mind about some of the questions I would be pointing out?
No, some of the questions that you would want to be asked. as a way of starting a good conversation. And we're not talking about somebody being nosy in wanting to get to know your business. These are personal questions that the person, the friend, the coworker, people who are there, like they would get to know you better, or they would get to know something about you that would help, say, because remember this, you know, this is like ABCs of human sociology. If we don't know people, we won't trust people. If we don't know them and we don't trust them, we won't accept them. If we don't know them, don't trust them, don't accept them, we won't love them. So what we want to do is, and the only way that we get to know people is by asking questions, you know, by this idea of conversing. And the more I know of you, the more you know of me. What happens is that you inevitably create a sense of trust and closeness. And that is what we're hoping for our relationships to continuously be doing, creating a sense of closeness and trust as these relationships age.
I guess the first thing that came to my mind when you now clarified, when I did my personality test, I was so amazed at the type of personality, not that I have, but the code that came up for my character. And so I guess if somebody asked me, what personality type are you? That's a very fun conversation to have, but it also gives a person a really good insight as to, you know, the way I think, the way I feel, my behaviors, and it'll give them a better understanding of who I am. That'd be a good question.
Yep.
Is that okay? Is that a good question, you think?
I think it's a very good question. And like I said, you know, so this question would matter to people who come in constant contact with you. So that would be your coworkers, that would be your relatives, that would be friends, that would be, you know, spouse. I think that piece of information would really be important, you know, for people to know. But I think the point remains, and that is, do not give up in getting to know each other. Okay, so we have a few more minutes left. Any plans for Eid? Do you have any plans for Eid?
Me?
Yep.
Yes, barbecue with friends. Thank you for asking. What about yourself?
Wait a
And
minute.
of course, okay. Of course, I know that the Jawami are doing really fun drive-throughs. I was thinking about decorating the car and waiting online for my Krispy Kreme donut, because I know you mentioned that they give the best donuts apparently here. Wasn't it you that told us about the donuts?
Only in Mission Viejo.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to be picky, but I guess I hope Mission Viejo is doing something.
I am not sure actually what the Jawami are doing, but before you go on, what do you mean you're barbecuing with friends? What happened to social distancing? What happened to staying at home?
First of all, when I see Sheikh, this is the problem. When people say things, they assume.
Yeah.
They assume that that means more than 5 people, one. And they assume that means we're going to be barbecuing in this really small space. I mean, we live in California. Like the backyards are huge here.
Excuse me?
Everybody
In California?
Yeah.
The backyards are huge?
Yeah. Open space.
Okay.
I'll put my mask on and then enjoy. I'm sorry. I know. We're making the best of it. Don't judge me. Hey, are we judging each other here?
Alrighty, so to all of our viewers, please remember, not every advice that is being given by our clinician here is worthy of following.
I mean, okay, maybe that came out the wrong way.
Right.
I really don't know how to clean that little mistake up. I don't know if it's, we're going to still practice social distancing. We're outside in open space.
Very good.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. As far as I am concerned, I honestly, you know, I really don't have a plan. Probably just, I think I will spend most of the day making phone calls and getting phone calls, and lots of WhatsApp messages that unfortunately I will not read. I will just click on to get rid of that green button that tells me that I have nothing in my inbox. But that's the I think that's how our Eid is going to be going.
Yeah, Sheikh. Okay, am I allowed to judge you now?
Go for it.
You mean to tell me people are going to, can you hear me now?
Okay. I can.
You mean to tell me that people are going to go out of their way and compose of a narrative to send you on Eid and you're just going to make sure you unread it instead of responding?
Very good question. So it will be a lot of
Everybody
forwarded.
watching, let's not
There'll be
take
a lot
advice.
of forwarded messages that are just going to be select all, send, select all, send. Whatever comes their way, select all
Forward.
and send. And I think you're guilty of that too. No, actually, you don't do that. No, you don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. No, that's all you.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
anyway,
but
thank
But
you.
whatever people do, I think what happens is that we want to wish you a very Eid Mubarak to you and your family and your loved ones. Whatever you do, please do it safely. At this point, I think that California is really bad, but I think Florida is worst at this point. COVID is decided not to go away, not for Ramadan, not for Eid. So whatever you do, please be safe. And as you remember also, we've just spoken about relationships. So in the Islamic tradition, mending broken relationships is really, really, really important. And I think that a lot of people, and I shouldn't say in the Islamic tradition, but I think in all traditions, people really need to be mending any broken relationships that they have. And usually the time of Eid comes in as a very good opportunity where people are, I think, emotionally prepared to forgive and they're emotionally prepared to accept an apology. So if you have any issues with any of your loved ones, I think right now is going to be a good time for you to extend an apology, accept an apology, make a phone call, reach out to people. I think that's just going to be really, really crucial. And I think it will add to the joy of Eid that people may have. So may we all not have any broken relationships, and may all of our relationships be mended. Ya Rabbal Alameen.
آمين. كل سنة وانت سالم يا شيخنا. Inshallah. Thank you. Inshallah, we will see everybody next week. We have a whole month of webinars lined up about back to school. So we wish you guys the best. Enjoy the holiday. Have a great weekend. Until next time. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Oh, so this time, mashallah, I think you really got a good handle of the Zoom as well as, and because we don't have PowerPoint, I think you did very well, mashallah.
Wow, really? Did you think
yeah, you
that?
did. You
Thank
did.
you. I appreciate it.
I think it was the PowerPoint. I think the PowerPoint was just throwing you off, I think. So, you know.
Yes. Well, it was just super hard to be able to participate in the chat box and having to cater to your discussion while facilitating a whole PowerPoint.
Hey, I thought Muhammad was taking care of the chat, wasn't he?
No.
No, he wasn't?
No. Muhammad takes care of so many other things.
Is Access open on Friday?
No, we are closed. Oh man, I should have told everybody. We're closed on Friday. Give us a call. We'll call you back. Leave us a voicemail.
Okay, so Friday we're closed.
We are closed on Friday. What a bummer. I hope nobody shows up thinking we're open.
Okay, and we're not seeing people face to face now, are we?
Well, it depends. Not for counseling, but for other services, we are able to assist with different applications.
Okay, good deal. I'm just waiting for 6:59. It's 6:59 right now, and we said that we're going to be here till 6 o'clock. So I'm just waiting for the 00. It's not like
wow. Since when are you prompt? Is this your New Year's challenge? I mean, you're only 7 months late.
That is a perception that I don't know what to do about.
Was that indirect communication? Being that I'm a Middle Easterner?
That was.
That I really didn't mean I meant.
Mm.
I meant what I said, but didn't really say what I meant.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Anyway, so this is your second Eid. This is your second Eid in California.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, inshallah, you and your husband have a good time, Ya Rabbal Alameen. And
if you happen to be here, Sheikh, stop by for barbecue.
Yeah, right. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. In that very congested, small. Okay. All righty. Yalla.
Take care. Bye bye. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam. Ahleen.
Assalamu.